What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
The Force will be with you, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 20th Century Femme on Film.
Woo!
That's right, yeah, I'm doing a crossover. We're doing a crossover.
Yeah, ultimate team.
Yeah, high fives all round. We're not in the same room, but yes, one of my favourite people is back on the show. I'm doing a crossover. We've done this with other bits and pieces, but I'm joined by Ria from Femme on Film. Or you could say that I'm joining her on Femme on Film.
Yes. I mean, I hate doing intros, so I would prefer if you did it, because as we all know, intros and outros are not my forte.
Yeah, it becomes a bit of a blurb. Like that whole sort of like, welcome to Instant Ski or welcome to Stories Out Time and Space. It just sort of like happens.
Yeah, your Stories Out Time and Space is like spot on. It's like you're almost a people who do the little idents in it's like you're a little ident person.
I could just record it though and not have to do it again.
Actually, that's a really good point. Why don't you record it?
Yeah, I don't know. Should do, really. Anyway, we are going to be talking about something that's crossover. So this is 20th Century Geek and Femme on Film talking about a topic. And with it being Femme on Film and me being the sort of like 20th Century Geek, we thought there's only one topic I'd really cover. And this came about because I watched Alien 1 through 3 and then watched all of the Terminator films. And I was like, I want to talk about female action stars. Because we talk about, I'm a big fan of all the big action stars, Arnie, Stallone, Van Damme, so on and so forth. But like, I got into this and thought, I was thinking, Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor. But then I went down a bit of a rabbit hole and I was like, there's a shit ton of these. And I've forgotten how awesome some of these are. So that's what I wanted to do. And so obviously we came together to do this. So that's sort of it. That's sort of the point. I mean, it's going to be a general discussion. So I'm going to start. Let's throw this out with those two people, because that's where we started, isn't it? Like Ellen Ripley and Sarah Connor. And the reason, let me frame this, because the reason I started thinking about this was because of the transition. So I was thinking about the male versus the female action star. And many of the action stars, when I go back to the 80s, especially the sort of, the big boom of the 80s, the vast majority of male action heroes, the characters are, they've already got their experience.
Yeah.
Right. They're usually broken, think Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon, or even like Arnie in Commander, like he's a former Green Beret, or in Predator, the whole that whole group of sort of like ultra masculine macho, just walking testosterone into the jungle kind of group. They've all got a history. They're all predefined. They've all got their history, and in many cases, it's like one last mission, being pulled back into
classic. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But with the female action stars, in many cases, you see the evolution. Like they start. So both Ellen Ripley, like Sigourney Weaver's Ellen Ripley, doesn't start as an action icon, or doesn't start in that way. Like in the first film, she's just a survivor. And the same with Linda Hamilton and Sarah Connor. Like in the first film, they both kill they are both the survivor, the final girl, if you will, for want of a better phrase. And they kill the antagonist, the Terminator and the Xenomorph. But they are the survivor. It's not until the following film that they are the action stars. And then people remember them as being these action heroines. And I was just like, okay, well, are there more of these? Is this a usual case? And it is, even going up to like, I was thinking of the Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of thing. And again, like female action stars are often given that journey to becoming the action. Like we always have to define them. We have to prove that they can be. You can't go, they've always been an action star, And when we do that, I think of Atomic Blonde or Salt,
Mhm.
and there's a few others. I was like, they don't work. Like, or they don't. No, they're not that they don't work. Sorry, they're not successful.
They're not successful, as in people don't buy into it, even though both of those films are fantastic, and everybody should go
Exactly.
and watch Salt now. Stop listening to us. Go and watch
Salt's
it.
a
It's
really good
amazing.
film, and Angelina Jolie will be coming up on this.
Oh yeah,
because she's badass. But yeah, we sort of seem to struggle with this idea of established female action hero or action heroines or female action characters. That was where my head was at when I first came up with this topic. That was where I was thinking. So I'm going to throw it to you now because I've talked enough.
yeah, absolutely. And I think Ellen Ripley is one of the most interesting cases because even in Aliens, she's not an action star at the start. She builds up to that. In fact, she gets in the Marines. She retains what I love about her from Alien, which is her competence. She knows her own voice. She's not afraid to use her own voice. She's also not afraid to take action and make difficult decisions, and she does that throughout both films. It's actually only towards the end of Aliens where she starts to make more emotional decisions, which I think very much will reflect male action stars and the fact like maybe their daughter gets kidnapped or their wife does or whatever, or their wife is threatened type of thing.
Fridging.
Yes, but I also think Aliens. I think James Cameron is one of the. I hate saying this because he's a man, but I think he is one of the best action filmmakers for telling women's stories, which really irritates me. Although it shouldn't, but I think he is incredibly good at it when we see that in Terminator, even in Titanic. Like Titanic is Rose's story.
Oh god,
it's
yeah.
not Jack's story.
No.
And I think we see that in Aliens, where he makes her a mother figure, but that doesn't make her weaker, which is often what happens. And it's happened in a lot of the MCU stuff recently, that they maybe still have their powers, but actually grieving children or grieving the loss of their children or having children, whatever, makes them weaker. That doesn't happen with Ripley. All it does is make her more motivated. So even though she seeks the help of men, of the Marines around her, although the Marines aren't just men, hello Vasquez, you are awesome. She learns quickly. She uses that competence that she already has to up her skills, not become a Mary Sue. We have a good basis of why she is able to suddenly pick up a flamethrower and murder some aliens and some alien eggs. And I think that's such interesting storytelling, which actually hasn't been beaten since. I think filmmakers really struggle with it.
Well, I think it comes down to good screenwriting, and I'll throw something out about James Cameron obviously as well, because he is an advocate for women for the most part, and he was a big fan of Catherine Bigelow, and obviously really championed sort of like Strange Days, which I know I'm a big fan of that film, and I like Catherine Bigelow. We talked about Blue Steel and Point Break and all that kind of stuff, and that's an interesting one actually. Point Break is an interesting one because that's a female director directing male.
And showing male vulnerability,
exactly.
Male friendship. I fucking love you, Catherine Bigelow.
That doesn't get shown in other films, and we'll get to that as well. But one of the things I think to point at Aliens, one of the things about the great thing about the screenwriting in that film, especially if you watch the extended edition, like the theatrical version is good. I love the theatrical version, but the extended edition, the director's cut actually has got several key points that I think are really important. And you get to see more about her when she's got her job, her doing the sort of using the loaders and stuff. So when the Marines, when you got Hicks and Sergeant A. Poem saying sort of like, well, what can you do? And she gets strapped into the walker and she's like, where do you want it? And then like you say, she's competent. Like she doesn't want to be like a fifth wheel. She's not a damsel in distress. Like she's a part of it. She wants to be effective. But you do find out at the start of Aliens that when she was away and she had a child, she had a daughter, and obviously it's been 52 years, I think between Alien and Aliens, like she's been in stasis. Like you find out this, obviously her daughter has grown up and she doesn't want to see her and all this other stuff. And like you say, so when she meets Newt, like it's an instant maternal connection, but like you say, it's not a fawning weakness as to sort of like it's just a maternal instinct that's sort of kicking in, and you can see it's also patching up a grieving process as well. And so that seems like really important to the story, because it's not, like you say, when the shit hits the fan at the end of the film, like you say, it makes total sense as to why she's now protecting Newt and willing to sacrifice. She's like, I let my daughter. No, she feels like she let her daughter down. She didn't, but she obviously feels like she let her daughter down, so she won't let another child down. And so it all stacks up. And so the thing is, you're able to balance that, the maternal side with the action side, and it still works without her becoming a terrible phrase, which I don't want to use, but it's sort of work is manly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes they sort of, because some directors can't differentiate action from manliness.
Yeah, I hate the powerful, strong woman trope that we currently have to endure, because apparently it means that we're just muscly and can fight. And it's like, well, there's strength in many other places, thanks. We don't have to imitate what is seen as traditional masculine traits to be strong. And with Aliens as well, what's so interesting is Hicks is paternal. So it's not just limited to Ripley. Hicks is clearly paternal over Newt. And that's really interesting. You know, Cameron doesn't shy away from that. And, you know, and he's so good in his, I don't know if show not tell, because he does tell, but, you know, there are small things when we see what Michael Bihn's doing with the character of Hicks and how he reacts to situations, and small acting choices that he makes that makes you go, he would also go back for Newt. So it's, you know, and I love that that's shared. You know, I enjoy it more because it is Ripley's story, and I want to be there for Ripley's story, but it doesn't mean that Hicks has to be all, you know, that horrible traditional masculine stuff. He gets to be paternal, and he gets to care as well. And it's not just because he wants to bang Ripley. I mean, we all want to bang Ripley, but, you know, he has that connection with Newt as well. Yeah,
and that's the really thing. It's one of the things, as a side note I'll get to in a moment, but like, it's one of those things about the film that actually is most interesting. You said about the escalation, is the pivot point that happens in the film, at which sort of Ripley takes charge, is like there are things constantly happening, and she's sort of like, look, she's almost like you say, she's professional and competent, but she knows she's not sort of like a superhero. So she's not going to sort of like second guess this bunch of Marines. She's like, oh yeah, well, you do your stuff. That's what you're here for. I'm just here as a consultant. And it's the fact. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry, I was messing around. I nudged my microphone. What was I saying? Yeah, so the pivot point. Yeah, so it's the fact that like it takes so much to push her to that the point of taking charge, and it happened in the first film as well. Like she keeps sort of she sort of gives her opinion. She's not afraid to talk up, but it's not she's not disrespectful. Do you know what I mean? Like she'll hold back and go, well, this is, you know, she'll recognize his rank or whatever. And when it goes into a shit show, that's when she's like, okay, well, I've got to take charge now. And it's when she's in the personnel carrier, and they're all getting attacked by the xenomorphs and stuff, and she just gets hold of and just drives it into the building and stuff. And that's obviously the pivot point. But it's almost like she knows, this is not my position. I'm not the expert in this, until she has to be the thing. And that's the thing as well. It's sort of like she's not arrogant with her.
Yeah.
With her, you know, which again, you get that in some of these sort of action heroes, and there's almost like a machismo of sort of like having to be the one that kicks in the door at the beginning. Do you know what I mean? And so it's almost like a common sense.
Yeah. And she
approach.
uses her strengths and her weaknesses in equal measure. Like she knows what her weaknesses are. And so that's why she goes, right, show me how to use this gun. I am going to need to use it. She's not afraid. You know, she is how women have to navigate their way around the world, which is, if we don't know something, we have to ask, because somebody's not going to tell us.
Yeah.
Because they will assume that we don't care, because all we care about is shoes.
Yeah.
You know, so she's not afraid to do that. But that's also because she has strength in herself, that she knows, I'm going to ask because I want to do this. And, you know, and she knows what to do in a chaotic situation. She knows how to take charge. The amount of women I see when there's an absolute shit show going on around them, they're just calm, and they're just like, right, I'll just do this, I'll just do that. Let's all try and focus on that. If you don't want to focus on it, fine. You go off and shoot your guns over there. I'm going to focus on getting us out of the situation into one that's slightly better that's there. Like, that is every woman I know.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
It's a fair point, I think, to be perfectly honest. It's a fair shout. But you say about the gun scene as well. I think this is a great thing to Cameron, and we'll move off onto another Cameron thing, but as a baseline. But when she's been shown the pulse rifle, he says about the grenade launcher. He says, "Oh, we don't need to cover that." But he's not saying it as in like you can't handle that. He's basically saying like there shouldn't. I'm hoping we shouldn't have a situation where you need to fire
grenades, please.
Yeah. And she's like, no, look, if I'm going to know it, and she has a great line. It's like, if I'm going to know it, I'm going to know it. So show me everything. And he's like, all right. He doesn't try and sort of pander to her or sort of go, well, it's a bit big for you to handle, love, or anything like that. It's just, we'll start with the rifle. We'll move up to the grenade launcher sort of thing. So I like that. So you're right. So that's the Ellen Ripley. But let's move on to her counter of this sort of thing, which is Sarah Connor. So in the first Terminator film, Sarah Connor is 19 years old. She's a waitress working in a diner. And then obviously the events of the first film happen. Kyle Reese, another Michael Biehn yet again.
Yep.
As Kyle Reese comes back and they have a night, they sort of, they have a night of passion and blah, 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 blah. And in the end of it, Kyle Reese is killed and she kills the Terminator. Spoilers for a film that's sort of 40 years old, pretty much.
I mean, again, if you've not seen Terminator, what the fuck are you doing? Stop listening to us.
Yeah. And a good point is like if you don't realize that they kill it at the end of the first one, you really don't get the point of the 2, 3. But then, like I say, so one of the great things, obviously, the film then jumps forward. It came out in 91, 92. Well, it's supposed to be set in 95, I think, from what they say.
I think so, yeah. I mean, definitely, Judgment Days definitely happened.
Yeah. So two is 2 years before Skynet goes online, if I remember rightly. And so you have Sarah Connor, and I love the fact that with this Sarah Connor, like we said about with Ripley being common sense and restrained, and she's gone through trauma, but she's still sort of like she's that center of calm until she can't be anymore. But with Sarah Connor, she's not just got trauma, she's carrying like a weight of knowledge, which has pushed her to a brink, and she's trying to, and you said again that she's trying to be proactive, but it's the society that's stopping her. And
what a fucking surprise. Men aren't listening.
Well, but this is one of the things I never thought about until watching the last time I watched Terminator 2, and I was like, if this was a bloke, would Terminator 2 be different? Where he'd be like, oh, I know this is going to happen, and this is happening. I don't know. The fact she got caught and she's held in Pescadero mental institution, and the doctor sort of the Dr. Suberman sort of has this idea of her being sort of like, clearly sort of delusional and stuff. It just felt very much like she's a female nutcase. That's, and then you realize that we know she's not, and she's very, very competent, but it's the choices she made after the end of Terminator 1 to train and prepare and all that sort of thing I always find fascinating. I don't know. I'm going to throw that back to you now again.
Yeah, and I always find it interesting that at some point during all of that training and preparation, she's telling people, she's going, look, this is going to happen. And somehow then medical personnel get involved and put her in a mental institution.
She gets caught. If it's in the film, it states, because there's people that clearly believe her, or at least are on her side.
Oh, yeah, because she's like, it's almost, sorry, you carry on.
No, because she's got those friends in Mexico. In South California that are like, where she's got those massive guns still.
Yeah, she's like starting up her own militia.
Yeah. Which has got one of my favorite Arnie scenes when he's got the minigun and sort of like John Connor's like, it's so you.
Yeah.
But like I said, she got caught blowing up
awesome.
A software company.
She's so badass.
Yeah, so she lost. That's because she had John Connor with her, and so she lost custody of John. And so but it's one of those when you sort of go, all right, when you actually know the context, like you and I know why she was trying to blow up a software company. But there's a part of you, like, if you don't know that knowledge, and you're like, she tried to blow up an office building, like, she clearly is dangerous. So it sort of makes sense, but it's a different, like, you can't communicate, you couldn't articulate those things. But a male one, I don't know if they'd have a male hero have been caught. Like, I think
he wouldn't be caught. He'd get away with it. He'd totally
still be
get
on the
away
run,
with it
wouldn't
and
he?
be
The
on the
film-
run. And
Yeah.
100%. Oh, she's like she's today. It's like she'd be a climate activist, wouldn't she? Totally. I'm well on board with that. Sarah Connor, climate activist, blowing shit up to try and save the world. Fuck yes.
Well, let's take this, because one of the things that we don't have with Ripley that we do have with Sarah Connor is we now have a more mature version. Like, she's followed her story to the end, and you get Dark Fate. And there's one of the things I having watched sort of,
We have to talk about
no, but, all right, I won't talk about the whole film, but I will talk about, there are 3 points. There's something in each of the films where sort of, again, it's a Cameron thing. Like, it sort of happens in the third one, but it definitely happens in the first one and the second one. James Cameron does well. Is that I don't want to call it softening of the characters, because it's not. It's a humanizing of the characters. So in the first one, sort of like Sarah Connor, she sees some stuff. Like, she sees some shit in the first film, and she ends up believing Carl Reese. But she gets this glimpse of the future from everything he's told her. Like, we see it as an actual flash forward, like an actual memory of Carl Reese, but she gets this glimpse of what the future is. And it really upsets her. Like, she's like, yeah, no, I've seen a future. And he agrees. He's like, oh, yeah, no, it's a shit show. Like, the future's awful. And then she's like, oh, right, that's really bad. So it's really upsetting to her. It's just that there's a moment of, like, emotional sort of, like, denting in her when he sort of confirms that, like, no, it's terrible. Like, where I come from, like, I hid in the shadows. I had to hide in the rubble. We fought for food. Like, and she's like, oh, man, all this is on me. All right. Well,
yeah, shit, I don't want that responsibility.
But this, in the second one, it's the moment when she's obviously released and she goes after Miles Dyson. And straight away, she starts off and she's like, da, 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 and she's able to blow the shit out of his house. But the moment she breaks into the house and the little boy, Dyson's son, sort of is sort of leaning over him and like, don't shoot my daddy. And she's sort of like, she knows it's his fault. She knows he is responsible for everything, but she can't do it. And it's this humanizing again of, like, she can show that vulnerability, and she recognizes that killing this guy in front of his family is actually, like, a really wrong thing to do. And although she sort of worked up to this over many years, like, she can't do it. Now, if this was a male stuff, if you were to do that and it was Arnie in that position and he had that, like, there'd be people going like, it's a, he's gone soft, it's a weakness, you can't, he has to take the shot. But you can sort of do it, especially when you do it better. Like, you can do it well with a female action star that she can acknowledge and go, yeah, this is shit, and I don't want to have to do it. And I always find that interesting. That, like,
and well, we were talking just before this about toxic masculinity, basically. And wouldn't it be amazing if there was a Mission Impossible film where, or like, if if Sarah Connor was a man, where it was a man doing lots of shooting and running around, and to be Tony Farina, pew pew pew. So I just want to do in every single podcast I'm in, because it is really fun to do that.
That should be your signature.
Yeah, well, I've stolen it from him. Fighty fighty pew pew. That it, if we saw a male action protagonist doing this, it would actually be really interesting. I mean, it is really interesting that she does it, but also we are used to female roles being softened, right? And I still remember, probably not when this came out, because I wasn't old enough and T2 came out, but I remember there being like a huge thing about her being muscly, and she's, and she's fundamentally changed. Oh, like, lots of people didn't like that. I was like, oh my God, this is the most awesome thing ever. And then it became a lot more of she became more of an icon as people sort of got more used to the idea of there being a female action star who's also muscly and can shoot guns and competent and stuff like that. And I think her humanity makes her stronger. And I don't think I'm setting the world alight with that with that thought. But I would love to see that in a male action star. I'd love to see a male action star who's not conflicted because of the traditional male action star type stuff, or a Star Wars-y because you are my father, spoiler for Star Wars type business. Just being conflicted about what they are doing and why are they doing it, and is there an alternative option? Because if that kid wasn't there, she would 100% just shoot him in the head, just gone.
Yeah.
And if this was a male protagonist, the kid wouldn't be there.
No, they wouldn't introduce that thing. Well, one of the,
because women are soft, right? Because we care about kids.
Yeah.
Apparently, I mean, some of us don't. Just so people know.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think, because I've been watching a few of these films lately, I watched Lethal Weapon because I do love a bit of Lethal Weapon, and
I can't watch it anymore, even though I think it's really good
because of Mr. Gibson.
Yeah,
I'll give him a pass.
That's nice.
Just because I can't not watch 80s action films. I don't give him a pass. I give Martin Riggs a pass.
Fine. But Riggs, if you give Lethal Weapon a pass, that's fine.
That's probably the best way, yeah.
The actor a pass, then we are going to have a conversation during this recording.
No. It's just more. It's more the Lethal Weapon franchise. That's about it. To be fair, Lethal Weapon 1 to 4.
There's no point watching his Mad Max because the latest one's better than them all. So.
We'll have to discuss that because I love.
By the way, I'm right on that one. I don't normally say that. I think like what you like, but Fury Road is better than all the others.
I'm not getting silent. We'll get to Furiosa. We will get to Furiosa. But watching it, and this is one of those weird things. So Riggs is, he's on sort of like the verge. Is he broken? And you find out because his wife died in a crash, and obviously Phrygian. So that's his sort of like what his mental state is, the way it is.
Love being motivation for men.
Yeah, but one of the things I find interesting when I watched it this time was like his wife was killed in a tragic car accident. Yeah. So his wife was taken away from him because in sort of uncontrollable circumstances. You find out there's more to it in 2, which sort of bothers me. But one of the things I find interesting is later than in the film, he's more than happy to start firing off his gun randomly into public places. And I'm like, hang on, you could be killing off loads of other people's like wives and children and husbands and everything like that. And so that thing of sort of the wanton violence, and that sort of thing of the recognizing that you shouldn't really just open fire on a street, just because you're chasing out a bad guy. Like that should be the moment, shouldn't it? Of like you should try, going to open fire and then stopping, and someone going like, I can't. Too many people. There's too many people. This is not safe. And then chasing him down, like recognizing what happened to your wife, and then applying it to your future adventures, and sort of like. But you're right, because that quandary is never introduced for male characters. Like they haven't got to address it.
Do you think in Terminator, the first one, do you think Sarah Connor is weak, not as like a written character, but as a human, who she is as a character? Yeah.
No, not particularly. I think.
Yeah, I don't either.
She's 19 years old. Like, one of the things I like about the film, the more I watch the film, some of the things I like about it is actually sort of like some of her relationships, like her and her housemate, whose name escapes me now. But her and her housemate, like, they clearly got this relationship. They've got this friendship. She, her housemate her flatmate is like the outgoing one, and sort of like, has the sort of like the big muscly boyfriend who, clearly has a bit of a jokey relationship with Sarah as well. Like they've got a past and this other stuff. But she's the more sensible one. Like she's not played weak. She's just clearly the more like Sarah Connor is the reason that their rent gets paid on time every month.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, not the housemate. Sarah's the one that gets that sorted. Like, that's how I've always read her. And so she's not weak. Like, because then also, when it all goes down. I mean, to be fair, she goes out in LA on her own,
like, right? And knows if there's somebody following you, the scale of go to a nightclub, go to a public place.
Exactly. Like she makes sensible. Sarah Connor makes sensible decisions throughout. It's then
especially for a 19-year-old. I was a shit show.
Yeah, 19. Exactly. Yeah,
it's a miracle I'm not dead.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. There's a whole generation that are just sort of like, we should have been poisoned by 2020 at some point. Not the year, the drink. But yeah, no, I don't think Sarah Connor's a weak character. I think she's a young woman. And so it's not her weakness that beats her. It's the circumstances overtake her. I mean, the moment the pivot in that film as well is not her.
Mm-hmm.
The pivot in that film is she goes to Tech Noir, which is a club I'd love to have visited. I love it's the best club, one of my favorite clubs in films. But she sort of sits up from that table. Arnie, the Terminator, identifies her and pulls out an Uzi.
I know, amazing.
And just opens fire. And then obviously Kyle Reese opens fire. So it's a gun battle. And then Kyle Reese grabs her. Like, at that point, she's just like, what is going on? Like, circumstances overtake her more than her being weak. And she accommodates, she adapts to the situation pretty quickly.
See her in the police station. Like, incredible. I wouldn't be that quick thinking. I would be dead within seconds. In like right from the beginning of this film, like Sarah Connor, Ria Carragon, hi.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
That's it. Yeah.
Short film finished.
Humanity's over.
Yeah. But yeah, we see it in the police station. Again, it's competence. I've said it a million times. I love people who are competent. And, she may not be in the first one, she may not be the future Sarah Connor that we know, but there's the kernel of who she can become.
Yeah.
And I find that so interesting that Cameron doesn't wipe the slate of that.
No.
That in the second film, she's physically different, but personality-wise, it feels like she's a continuation of the same character.
Oh, 100%.
You know that she's resilient. She's in LA working as a waitress, but basically by herself at 19. Things aren't great in your life if that's what you're doing, right? So we already know that she's got resilience. And all it is an expansion of that.
Yeah, exactly. You see it throughout the film, especially the first film, you see that development of the resilience and the character. Like, the more she learns and she recognizes that, because at the police station, like I said, she hides under a desk, like she's scared. But she's not, it's not weakness. It's not like, I don't expect her to go out guns blazing. Like, you're watching like competent police officers being mowed down by this unstoppable machine. And so her hiding under the desk is completely common sense. Unfortunately, it's what they now have to teach kids in school.
Yeah.
But so I find but as she learns more, and the final scene in the first film when they're in the factory, and Kyle's obviously been hurt, and she's the one that he falls down and he's turned on all the machines, and she grabs the bag with the bombs and the pipe bombs in, but she's the one that's keeping them going. She's like, on your feet, soldier, come on. Like, she's working with him at that point. Like, as you say, that's the kernel of what she will become in the second film. So yeah, no, I think it's a great continuation. That's why I think she's such a strong character.
She's so interesting. She's so like her and Ripley, and I'm sure many people have done their thesis on both characters. Like, I think we could just sit and talk constantly about like all day long little things about them that's so interesting. How do you feel about some of the later representations of her? So both how do you feel first? Well, I'll get into that. How do you feel about how she dies in Law? That it's leukemia.
Oh,
is it leukemia or cancer that takes her out?
Yeah. Terminator 3 can suck my balls back.
Such bullshit.
Yeah.
Such bullshit.
That film takes with one hand and gives with another. Right? I like the fact that film ends the way it does with Judgment Day is kind of ballsy. Like, it's got some really good bits in that film, but the cop out of having her die off screen,
such bullshit.
And I know that she didn't want to come back, and I know there's other reasons, and fine, fair enough. But it's such, I don't know, it just
ways
feels,
to do it.
It does. It feels like such a cop out for such a great character, and
who deserves more.
Exactly, which is why I was glad they brought it back for Dark Fate. Now,
yeah,
and even in Dark Fate, like, it has its flaws, and I think that the opening with the John Connor, everything is a bit meh. But I like her character, the fact that she has again, it's human. She's not just she's a human. Like, this thing's overtaken her, and she's been given this opportunity for redemption. And she's given that, she's to be that thing. I still think she's the same character that we've met twice before. So no, I kind of, I think she's a fascinating character in that respect.
How do you feel about the other iterations of her? So Emilia Clarke and Lena Headey.
I think the Sarah Connor Chronicles is an underrated show.
Oh my god, I agree, and I would watch Lena Headey in anything.
Oh yeah, Lena Headey's awesome. Like, Lena
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Lena Headey is amazing. If there's a wrestling movie called some Panthers. It came out last year, maybe before, and she's in that like a cameo as this sort of like promoter, and she's amazing. Like she's so funny. She's just an amazing actress.
She's so brilliant.
But I thought she was great. I think she works really well in that. I think she carries a similar weight of knowledge as the Linda Hamilton version. I think Emilia Clarke is awful in everything she does.
Yeah, I agree. I really like her as a person.
So I'm sure she's lovely. I've never met her.
Like whenever I've not met her, but like whenever you see interviews with her and stuff, I think, oh God, we would definitely be friends. But she was such a poor choice.
Yes.
For iconic Sarah Connor. Iconic. That I was just Genesis, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, Genesis is bottom of the barrel.
And also, because isn't Genesis is it an alternative reality?
It's an alternative timeline. It's supposed to be. It doesn't make any sense.
So couldn't we make Sarah Connor not a white woman?
No, in the sense that you could do whatever you want. Really, it's fiction. But no, it's not an alternate reality. It's a. And this is.
I've only watched it once, by the way. We actually tried to watch it fairly recently, and
I wouldn't bother. It's dreadful.
We were like, it's not happening. It's going off.
Instead of going back to 1984, the 1984 things happened, but in Genesis timeline, someone went back 10 years earlier, and so you get a Terminator going back to protect her in 74, 76.
Right.
And so he was actually raised by a Terminator, by Arnie, and that's she calls him Pops. And the moment I got into that bit, I was like, okay, this is bullshit, and I hate it. So I'm not watching this anymore. Like I detest that film. It's like, there are certain franchises where like you just, Terminator Genesis, The Predator, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and A Good Day to Die Hard. No, what's the other one? Good Day to Die Hard. Like where certain franchises just hit a bit where you're like, I don't recognize that film anymore. That film does not exist in canon. But those are those characters. But let's move forward. Those were the
sorry, I distracted. No.
It's a good
with what would just be normal general chat and not necessarily good content.
Moving forward, because there are other. So I then looked into this. I was looking at sort of like female action stars and stuff, and you get there are sort of. We talked, obviously this started with the 80s really, but and this is let's call it the Western, Western white female so I was thinking of I think Ripley and those other stuff and that, right? But what's oh my God, what's it? Pam Grier.
So this is exactly it. So I recently recorded with Tonya and Dan. Recently, it was ages ago now. Go listen to it. It was Pam Grier, and we talked Coffee and Foxy Brown, and that most white female action stars have somehow ripped off. In some way ripped off Pam Grier.
Pam Grier, and especially sort of from my recollection, I've got them on the shelf and I do need to watch them again sometime soon, but my recollection is not Coffee. Foxy Brown, sorry. Foxy Brown is almost like a template for so much that comes forward. Because Coffee's a revenge flick, isn't it? And Foxy Brown's a bit more of like a, if I remember rightly, a bit more like a international sort of, not international, but like a adventure.
There are some planes involved,
yeah. So it is one of those sort of like Foxy Brown, but Pam Grier, like the blaxploitation, seem to explore and give women representation way more than white women. I was thinking about this because you sort of in the 70s you get what was the cop show? Damn it. there was two female police women, and you had,
I
like,
don't know.
and then you had Charlie's Angels, and I'm going to find it now. I'll do this, but there was the TV was willing to, go there.
Well, but we see that as well. We like, some of my favorite TV shows are female action orientated. Alias, but
Yeah.
obviously Buffy the Vampire Slayer, my favorite
Yes.
TV show. Even Fringe to some extent, although it's less actiony, more sort of sci-fi type stuff. I think. And then we got to start getting into Castle and stuff like that, things that are slightly more modern, where I think women are allowed to take the reins and be more action focused. I remember when Alias first came out, I remember started watching it with Jack and just being like, what is this? She's getting to do everything that men get to do. But then also because it's Jennifer Garner, she's so incredibly vulnerable. At the same time, Jennifer Garner cries, I will cry. Thank you very much. Don't watch anything that she's in if you're feeling slightly emotional, but we also got to see women, both the stars and their stunt doubles, doing proper action.
Yeah.
And seeing them work hard, even like Dark Angel with Jessica Alba, right? It's not great when you watch it now, but at the time I remember being like, oh my god, she gets to ride a bike and do cool sci-fi stunts and things like that.
I mean, not that we sort of don't really mention his name now, but Joss Whedon in the sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, I said, it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dollhouse, Elijah Dushku was doing stuff in it, but even in Firefly, like the women were, a female engineer, his sort of like, second in command.
I mean, River, the ultimate.
River, yeah, exactly. So he, there was that push. It became more the norm, but it seemed to be more the norm on TV than on the big screen. And maybe it's because the money you're investing in a film. But again,
I think that's actually a really good point. Maybe you can take more risks in TV because they can cancel it after 6 episodes, right? So if you've got a woman taking the helm in an action role and the studios don't think it's landing, then you cancel it. You don't do it, right? Whereas films, it doesn't work like that.
Well, Buffy was a not failed film, that sounds wrong, but it was a bit of a flop, wasn't it? And then it became a successful TV show. I mean, granted, the film's not that great. The TV show is way better. But
go and listen to me, Jack and Tony talk about it. Thank you very much. Wonder Woman, right? Isn't Wonder Woman?
Yeah, Cheap Pop's from the 70s, Linda Carter. Yeah, exactly. So it works on TV, but it never seemed to sort of filter up or filter to the big screen, to the silver screen. And in many cases, you get it's almost like, I'm trying to think of examples. Not even sidekicks, right? I mean, there's a Dirty Harry film that has a female partner in that, and she does some bits, but like again, she's not an action star. It's Cagney and Lacey. There you go, Cagney and Lacey.
Oh, Cagney and Lacey.
Oh yeah,
it came to you in the end.
Came to you because that's who one of the from Dirty Harry. She plays one of Cagney and Lacey, but. Yeah, it never seems to filter up, and but you said you had the blaxploitation ones, and I'm sure there's others than Pam Grier. But even in the martial arts,
well, that's the other thing. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Well, Michelle Yeoh
House of Flying Daggers. Michelle Yeoh. Famously, she did so many of her own stunts, and is a true action hero.
Well, she was. So Michelle Yeoh was put up against Jackie Chan in Police Story 3, Super Cop. And even got her own spin-off off the back of that. Like, she was a legit Hong Kong action star.
Yeah.
And she wasn't the first. I'm sure that there were several, but you get Maggie Q.
Yeah.
Another one who has that sort of martial arts sort of like Hong Kong background. They didn't seem to be not as bothered because again it was very male centric. It was very male heavy, but they still sort of pioneered in that sense as well, where we weren't willing to do so. And I think sort of like I was thinking about other action movies that have female characters in, and they're never even if they're competent women, they're never allowed to be the full action star.
Yeah, I completely agree.
You know, so even like I'd say, like if you look at Die Hard, like Holly Gennaro, sort of like, you know, Bruce Willis's, you know, John McClane's wife, she's a successful businesswoman. But the point is that's sort of driven them apart, which is its own problem. But she's still shown to be a competent woman. She stands up to the terrorists or the thieves and all that sort of. She holds her position and becomes a representative of the people and that. But she never becomes an action star. And I think of like Sandra Bullock in Demolition Man. Like she's a cop, but you know, at the end of the film, like he tases her and knocks her out, so it becomes one-on-one with you know, Stallone and Wesley Snipes. There's always even in Speed, like Sandra Bullock again in Speed, like she's excellent in it. I love Speed, but she's behind the wheel. Like her role is driving the bus and stuff. While Keanu Reeves does all the actiony things. I suppose from I'm trying to say a Western point of view, my thought is Trinity is when the mold really starts to break. And that's not till 99.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? And you think, you know, it's the classic, isn't it? That that Asian and Black cinema has been doing something and been doing an interesting thing with female action characters who tend to be fully well-rounded as well. And then we westernize it and do it less well in many cases, and fuck up the themes that they have in their films, as well as all of the action, and make it more palatable for a wider audience. I mean, we suck, white people. But yeah, we definitely do that. When you were talking, I was thinking of, you know, an example like Underworld, for example. So I've watched that again recently because I've not watched it for ages, and I can't remember who, but somebody in the Comics and Motion family really likes it. And I thought, I've not watched it ages. And I was like, I've not watched it for ages because I didn't like it. And I was watching, I was like she's sexy, she's in that tight clothes, but she also sort of falls in love and all of this sort of shit. And I'm like, why can't she just be a badass vampire going around and killing people? But then funny enough, you mentioned Trinity, and she is a really interesting example because with Trinity, you're in danger of seeing her through Neo's eyes. Like, you know, but the way the Wachowski sisters do it isn't like that. I think I'm not their biggest fan, but I will give them a lot of respect in terms of that film and how Trinity is allowed to be a character in her own right, with her own motivations. She doesn't want to be seen through Neo's eyes. No. The fact that they fall in love just is like, well, kind of fate, but also just sort of like, it's just a byproduct of what is going on in her life, and it just sort of slips into it, you know. And she's still allowed to be herself and be strong and tough and teach him and show him a thing or two.
Well, that's what I was going to make a point of, actually, is one of the things is, considering all the characters in that, like the film will not start with Neo, like that's the point, it's the origin story of Neo. But you could have had any one of, like, you know, Dozer or Cypher or even Morpheus doing some shit at the start of the film. But it's interesting that the start of the film opens with Trinity kicking ass. And so she's the first of the, you know, the Matrixy people that you sort of see. So and that's interesting to me. That, oh, okay, this is about, you know, she's not seen as this. I want to be careful how I word this. She's not seen as a woman. Yeah. In the sense of, like, she's just a member of this crew.
Yeah, she's not shot in a salacious way. No. She's not, the camera doesn't happen to linger on her butt or her boobs or anything like that. You know, there's none of that.
No.
She could easily be a man.
Exactly. But this is the difference between Trinity and whatever the hell the character's called in Underworld. Selene, right? The difference is, like you said, like Trinity's in that tight leather and the pleather or whatever the hell it is, and, you know, if that's your thing, I'm sure it's sweaty and horrible. But when you, as you say, it's not salacious. It's not done for titillation. It's anything. It's just because they're like, oh, it looks cool.
Yeah,
It
and
looks
she
badass,
dresses
but
herself. We know
yeah.
she gets to dress herself. She goes into the Matrix.
It's her
and goes,
choice.
this is what I want to wear.
Yeah. But the opposite is like they've taken a similar aesthetic and applied it to Underworld, but they've done it for titillation and like you said, to be salacious. And that's where I think part of the problem is that you look at sort of like, not only is that, and Underworld's crap, but it doesn't work. But for those reasons, it's hard to sort of have that same thing, because again, like, you know, it's not the story. They wanted to do like Romeo and Juliet, but like they weren't quite sure what they were doing. Because around the same time, the other one that sort of springs to mind, which is an interesting one, I'll be interested in your notes on your feelings on this, is Mia Djokovic, or Jovovich. So she obviously starts, from my point of view, and I recognise her from Fifth Element.
Yeah, I love Fifth Element so much.
Yeah, which is a great film. And then obviously goes on to basically kick ass in the Resident Evil films. Now, love them or hate them, you know, and her and Paul W.S. Anderson, like, you know, not... Remember which Paul Anderson you're watching, because they're very, very different.
Don't get the wrong one.
Yeah, that's a very different night in with your pretentious friends.
Hey.
We'll move on to that. We'll move on to Paul Thomas Anderson another day.
Yeah, big fan over here. Thank you very much. Okay. You watch yourself, sir.
I'm very 50-50 on him.
Oh, the master. Come on.
We'll cover that one day. But she, although like she gains her paycheck because her husband's the director, and that's a different story. But I find the fact that like she is one of those true. She is for me, she's like the female equivalent of an Arnie or a Stallone, because she's a true action star. Like, she's done other stuff, but like, you get her in to do the female action role because she's really good at it.
Yeah.
And like, the films are never fantastic. Yeah, much like Arnie and Stallone, you always she's got better ones and worse ones. But like, to me, Mia Djokovic is almost like the pinnacle at some point of being a female action star, and this is where she sort of cracks that mold in those early 2000s. And I just find that, so yeah, I don't know, what are your thoughts on Mia Djokovic in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really like her. I don't think she's actress-wise the best actor. However, I think as an action star, she is absolutely fantastic, and she completely brings it and dedicates herself to making, I was about to say making it realistic, but I don't think that's right. I think you could watch her in Fifth Element or the Resident Evil films and not know whether it's her or the stunt double.
Well, in many cases, it's her. Like, she did a lot.
That's what I mean. Like, as in, like, you know, because there will be some things she won't be allowed to do because
of insurance.
It's too high. But I think you could not tell. Like, and I think that's incredible. And I think it's, you know, we see this with some of like Michelle Rodriguez as well.
Yeah, she was the next one on my list.
Yeah, you know, is in and there's another actress who I don't want to talk about, but there is another actress who was in Mandalorian.
Talk about anyone, whether they whatever.
No. Well,
we're not bigging them up. We're just saying that we appreciate more, or that we recognise them for something they have done in the past.
Gina Carino.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
You know, I think also she is not a great person. However, you know, Haywire.
Yeah, I was
fantastic. You know.
Yeah.
And this is not about her as a person, but as in just like with Mel Gibson,
just like with Lethal Weapon. Yeah. You need to I think it's fair to recognise the work she did for Haywire, and
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and I think it's really exciting that we're seeing women like that come on screen. Women who aren't, because my biggest pet peeve is, and you know, everybody talks about this, is you get women on screen who are action stars, and this worked in Buffy because this is the whole trope it was trying to do, who are skinny little women who are who do not have strong bodies, and it's like they will not be able to shoot the gun. That kickback on that gun is insane. You know, they won't be able to, like, you know, can't do those karate kicks and stuff like that because you have to have an incredible core, all of this sort of stuff. And it just really pisses me off. Like, why is the world so afraid of showing a stacked woman. We're seeing it currently with She-Hulk, right? The whole stuff around She-Hulk where, oh, she was too skinny because they kind of want her to be sexy still. And I'm like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
It's not real.
It's not real. Like, there are women who are weightlifters who have such strong athletic bodies. Serena Williams, you had the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, none of you were beating her in a fight, by the way, you pissy little men.
No.
You know, we had the exact same thing with The Last of Us Part 2 and the body model for one of the characters in it. And like everyone was like, we don't like her, she's too muscly. A woman would never be able to be this muscly. And like the actual woman who was based on was like, literally, I am this muscly.
This
like,
is the silliest.
off.
The silliest. This is the silliest argument, right? And all you have to do to counter this argument is go to a film like True Lies or
female action stars, True Lies, Jamie Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis. Now again, James Cameron. But take someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like and you have all these roles where Kindergarten Cop is another good one. Like he's got this sort of span of films where he's like, I'm just a regular guy, and you go, you're still built like a bodybuilder. I don't think this works. Like you're still Conan the Barbarian. Like someone, you can't say to someone they shouldn't be this, and then go. But I'm willing to accept Arnie as 6'1" and 280 pounds worth of muscle. Like it doesn't make sense. Like it's just ridiculous. It's just the like, dumbest comment.
Even in action films, like our bodies don't belong to us as women. Like even in action films, something has to be said about our bodies, and the bodies is the last thing that you should be focusing on, unless you're talking about the amazing physicality of what that body is doing. Like action films should be a place of body neutrality. It should be about, look at this amazing muscle machine, whether it's male or female or in between, hey, and what it's doing. That's what we should be wowed by. We shouldn't be going, a woman's body shouldn't look like that, or can I do that? It doesn't fit into my ideal of what a woman's body should look like. None of that matters. We should be going, these people have trained their bodies into these amazing things. Isn't that extraordinary?
No, it's not. If you're ever going to complain about that as well, then watch a Jean-Claude Van Damme film and find out some of the ridiculous situations he's able to insert the splits into.
And his butt. He loves his naked butt.
He does. Well, to be fair, it's a well-toned butt. So if I had a well-toned butt, I think I would be sort of like, it would be out at every opportunity. So fair play to him.
I always say this. I always talk about how youth is wasted on the young. Yeah. If I had my body now that I had in my 20s, I would just be probably naked all the time. Yeah. But I wasn't naked all the time in my 20s because I was like, oh, my body, gross. Now I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
It's so true. It is so true. But there's two points I actually want to sort of touch on there about action movies and action stars. Now, one of the things action films are the ridiculous. Okay, we can accept the ridiculous in an action film, right? We can accept a bus jumping a 90 feet gap and cheering it. We can accept people fighting off, we can accept, Arnie invading the island of Valverde and fighting off in an army of people. We can accept the ridiculous in an action film, and that's the point. And you said about the body and the sort of the basically, in many cases, the homoeroticism in many 80s films, but also just the sort of the beauty. This is sound really weird, but the beauty of the physicality, and that's not just sort of like the musculature, but like you said, the choreography and the physicality of it all is there to be admired. That's the point. Like I get bored of shooty pew pew sort of things. I like to see some of the fighting because it's much more interesting. Which is why I like some sort of martial arts films, because I find them fascinating to watch. But the same applies to the female action films as well, the female body. I'm not there to say it's there for titillation, but you have to admire, like you say, Michelle Rodriguez or Mia Djokovic or even Kate Beckinsale or whatever, damn it, I can't remember who the actress who plays Trinity, and that's really annoying me. But
Ariane Moss.
Thank you. You watch them and I will say, yeah, they look fantastic. Like, they look amazing. Like, they are the body beautiful. Like, they have worked incredibly hard to be able to do this stuff, and I will not and I'll probably go, yeah, they're really sexy and everything that, but like then I'm not then going to complain and go, well, they can't do this. Like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, that's not the point of this. Like, accept the ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's about right. So my friend has like amazing abs. She's got a great six pack. I can look at that and go, that's amazing that you've got a six pack.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I don't have any other thoughts about it. And that's how I feel about men's bodies. I will look at a man and be like, you've got a six pack or biceps, or you have a beer belly, which is my preferred. But I won't go at it and then objectify that body. I'll just be like, that's just your body. But when it comes to women in films and particularly in action roles, if it's not done correctly, it is all about whether you want to bang that body or not.
But I disagree. I'm going to throw a bit of a counter into this, because what I would say is there are scenes throughout the 80s and 90s, and it sort of changes probably a little bit into the 2000s. Marvel brought it back a little bit even, where the male physical form is there for ogling and titillation. Stallone probably less so than Schwarzenegger. Like Schwarzenegger was, he would sneeze and his shirt would fall off, sort of like.
But how many women are watching Stallone and Schwarzenegger?
Well, but that's where it started. But my point I was going to go is to the 90s. I would then say, let's say Patrick Swayze or Keanu Reeves, or the less sort of like, overly muscle, but like that still existed in the 90s, where they were there for a little bit of ogling, sort of like beefcake, if you will, to a female cheesecake. And I would say that is part and parcel. That's the phrase, isn't it? I would say that's part and parcel of the action film. Van Damme getting out his buns is there. But it's true, isn't it? Like, it's there it's part and parcel of it. Like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's part and parcel of an action film. And I'm not saying boobs. I'm not saying sort of like get your buns out, your baps out. I'm not looking for that sort of level of sexualization, but that sort of thing of, I'm trying to think of an example Mia Djokovic, sort of film.
What's different is that women's bodies are always commodified. Always. Yeah, so whether you're walking down the road,
but you're taking out context. Yeah, but you're looking at the wider context. I'm talking about action films exclusively, where the body is
action films.
But the action film is different. It's a genre in and of itself that's about the body. So either whether it be male or female, I think that a level of titillation is always going to be, is always there, and probably should always be there, because it's a part and parcel of what that film is.
Which I agree with, but I think wider, when we talk about wider action films that have women, I don't think that status is already there. I think, you can watch Tomb Raider and you can go, oh, but she's got big tits and stuff like that in the game. But there are ways that film is shot that does not need to be shot in that way that many times. And you can also watch an action film, and not always the guy gets his top off and all of that sort of thing. But for women, that's when, she happens to be having a shower. Why, why do we need to see that scene? But if I saw that body of her amazing biceps throwing a knife, because you need that power, like, I'm on board for it. But it's the titillation that I don't like.
For all the films I've watched and all the female films, whenever it is the film, there aren't. I've not seen in action sort of films in particular that sort of like, there's very few of that, as you say, that sort of like in the shower. There are men ones. Stallone, again, another one that loves to do it. Van Damme seems to want to do it, in the shower. I think it's Assassins with Stallone.
Oh God, Assassins! I forgot about that film.
Has both sort of like.
That is a shout out.
Yeah, but like that has both Stallone and Banderas taking showers. So like,
but there's still, there's still a way that the female body is dressed in action films and stuff like that.
To an extent, but I also,
there's no reason why half of them have to wear the clothes that they're wearing, as is demonstrated.
But then I'd say the same for the male. Like, you why, and I would use, I know it's not to the same extent, and it's, I just think with action, titillation probably does go across the line. There are scenes that go across the line, most definitely. But I think it goes on both ways. But again, like Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy, which isn't, I know it's not really it's not really an action film, but the thing of the moment of his reveal of his body is clearly only there to sort of for the same sort of titillation.
That doesn't mean that it should be there.
No, I'm not. But here's the point. Like I'm fine with that. Like I'm not against that because again, I'm looking at him and going like, yeah, fair play. You got a fair body going there, mate. Well done. Like if anything, he's an inspiration because he was the chubby one in Parks and Rec, and I look and go, fucking hell, good man.
Yeah, make me a millionaire, and I could go to the gym.
Yeah,
every day.
exactly. Yeah, that's I appreciate that. But this idea of sort of like I don't know, there's an element of it with action. I think going back to Demolition Man. Okay, I'll use this as an example. In Demolition Man, there's a scene where they're at Taco Bell and they're attacked, and Stallone then takes out all the sort of like the bad guys and stuff. And after, Sandra Bullock says to him about the violence is linked with a heightened sense of arousal. So basically, she's admitting that she's turned on because she's seen this thing, and then they have sort of like this virtual sex thing, which is awkward and weird, but it's supposed to be. It's funny, but it hits a very good point. I mean, that film's a satire, not realizing it's a satire, but there's a whole point there about action and sex and action and titillation just being intrinsically linked through the 80s. Like, not so much in the 70s. The 70s was about gritty, it was a bit more gritty action. Like there wasn't, we've talked about sort of Pam Grier, but I'm talking like Dirty Harry or The French Connection or those sorts of films. But the bombastic action films are more sort of linked with that sort of like the flexing of muscles and the oiled up and yeah, exactly. That's all part and parcel of that body beautiful to be celebrated is so linked with sex. At least in my mind, maybe I'm just a really dirty fucker. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I always see it in that way. But I don't see it in a sort of like exploitative sense. I've always sort of considered it, even as a kid, like it's part and parcel of that genre. Like the titillation is there, but as long as it's not too exploitative, or as long as it's not too gratuitous or pointless. I always hate like pointless sex scenes when it's sort of like
oh my God,
they irritate me because I'm just like, oh no, get more explosions, like blow shit up.
I want more running.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, but I don't know. It just feels to me like I'm not giving action films a pass, but I feel it's more a part of it. Like it's more sort of like it's supposed to be a part of it because of that's the point of the bombasticness of it.
It's just the intention of the filmmaker as well. If it's because you want to see this hot chick in not many clothes shooting guns, not great. If it's because you do want to, because this is the problem, because if it's you do want to celebrate a strong body and see that strong body at work, great. But I would say the line between that is incredibly blurred.
Yeah,
and I would say it's not as, intentions aren't as pure as that. Also, no. Jean-Claude Van Damme, just put your pants on. Just put them on. Don't
Johnny. Now, Joe, you keep your tight shorts on, mate. You celebrate your butt. You've been doing your squats. You deserve
His buns are steel.
Your buns are steel, yeah. Your muscles in Brussels. The other thing you touched on, I wanted to talk about was that you made a really good point about fight choreography and women. So you go back to those 80s films, and we make the big. You watch again. We use the big. Jean-Claude Van Damme's a very good example actually, because the man was a mixed martial artist. He was legit. He could do that stuff. That's how he got recognized. He kicked I think someone's hat off at Cannon Film, and they were like, "You need to be in a film."
So it was a much more innocent time back then, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. The whole story of Jean-Claude Van Damme and how he got into films is fascinating. Like it's a whole other thing. But like he could legit do that stuff. Like you watch him, you see there's roundhouse kicks or he's in punching, and you go, okay, that's going to take someone's head off. Like you accept that as a thing. And then like you say, there are certain female actors, and I will use Gina Carano as an example, like former UFC fighter. Same with what's her face, Ronda Rousey.
Oh, I didn't know that she was a fighter.
Yeah. She's a former UFC fighter. So Ronda Rousey.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
So you get these sort of characters when you go, oh, I've seen you fight. Like, I've seen you legit like rip into someone. Like, I'm going to bite. You've got the stack, you've got the builds, you've clearly got the agility and the flexibility. You look like, and I think Haywire is a really good example where you watch that and you're like, oh yeah, you look like that. That makes sense. Like, I believe that. And I feel that like Michelle Rodriguez is a similar one, where when I see her punching people out, I'm like, oh no, I fully accept
Yeah.
that Michelle Rodriguez would take someone's head off. Like, I've got no problem with that. But then you do see other actresses doing things, and I'm just like, yeah, you're clearly not doing that. Like,
Yeah.
and I think, unfortunately, I think one of the worst culprits for this, and someone might say otherwise, is, although I really like her, is Scarlett Johansson
Yes.
as Black Widow.
Yes.
The spinny head round kick thing just feels like I'm bored of that. Like, it never feels like it has any weight to it.
And they had such a long time to get her trained up and get her physically. So what I like about the comic book Black Widow, apart from lots of the sexy outfits and stuff like that, is usually her muscles are very defined. Well, not usually, it's often in some artist's interpretation of her, she looks strong and she looks tough. It's not just about big tits in the black catsuit thing. It's such a shame that I have such a huge problem with Black Widow in the MCU, that they don't, I can't think of the right words, they don't spend the time and the energy. I mean, maybe she didn't want to as an actress, but making her stronger, making her able to do more of these things herself, putting a bit of muscle mass on. Again, she may have not wanted to, but then does that mean she was the right fit for the role? It's all of these sort of things. Whereas I appreciate more, the Zoe Bells, the Jennifer Garners, all of those women, Gina Carino. Michelle Rodriguez. I appreciate that there's some realism there.
Yeah, I think it's twofold, because you're right about the body type and about the putting on the muscle mass or putting in the training. And I think an example again is Mia Djokovic. Like, she can do this shit. And again, when you see her doing a jump kick or whatever, like, there's a part that goes like, yeah, all right, I'll buy that. Fine. I take it that she is, she does martial arts. Like, she knows some of this stuff. It looks legit. One of the best examples of this, though, I'd say, is well, no, where the point before I get to it is also the fighting style. This spinny round head stuff and whatever, like, it gets boring. The fact of the matter is, I'm 6 foot. I'm heavier, a lot heavier than I should be. Right? If I throw a punch and it hits someone, I'm probably going to do some damage. Like, I've been in fights. I've been wrestling. I've played rugby and football. Like, I could do damage. I know I could do. But if I was to take someone who, an average female size, or sort of like, or whatever, is going to do less damage in the same way. They can't do brawling. They can't do sort of like wild haymakers. Do you know what I mean? So you need to think about how you're going to use them. And in some cases, they do. And I think about, like, Atomic Blonde is a really good example of this. And again, I'd like to throw out Charlize Theron as another female action star. I think she's ace. Like, Charlize Theron is just phenomenal. But Atomic Blonde is so clever in the fact that she's just like, the guys don't go down first punch. Like, she has to do things, and she uses the things around the room. And there's a fight in the kitchen where then she ends up using sort of a hose and all this other stuff and all these things, like, and you go, that to me feels brutal and makes sense. Like, she's not taking out 3 guys with 3 kicks and a punch. Like, it's a hard worn fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's okay for female action stars to have different fighting styles to male action stars. I don't think women have to imitate men to be strong or to be stars, action stars in their own right. I think there is enough different types of women in the world that they're different body types and their different strengths and their different weaknesses can be represented in films, much like it can be for men in action films. Bruce Willis in Die Hard is not stacked action man, right?
No.
Right? So how come he gets to do that? but a woman doesn't.
But
right?
he doesn't, though. But that's the point. In that film's so different. If you watch that film,
But like,
I know what you're saying.
let's talk about Die Hard. But I'm saying
Yeah.
that somebody like Bruce Willis gets to be an action star.
Yeah.
Like he still gets to be an action star. Taking away from like the Arnies and the JCVDs and stuff like that, men can be, Robert Redford was technically an action star at one point, and like never was he like completely stacked. All of that sort of stuff. Like different male representations get to at some point be an action star, and we don't get that with women. Or if we do get it, it's things like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill, right? Fantastic female action star. We have to see the journey of how she gets to that. Like exactly like you said, we have to see her use her smarts when fighting or tools when fighting and stuff like that. Now just imagine if a man got the opportunity to do the same thing. If we got a male action star who got to come in and like not be the toughest, but he's smart and he knows how to use almost Jason Bourne style, right?
Well,
he knows to use like a paper and stuff like that.
Have you ever seen Nobody?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No, because on our list, we'll never get around to watching it. Well, we probably will, but in about 5 years' time. But like that's so exciting to me that we just clear the board and we just say, hey, anybody can do this. Male, female, trans, like everything in between, non-binary, everybody in between can bring something to because I love action films. I will watch any damn action film that comes along. Make my poor other half who doesn't like action films watch it. And and there's always something I will enjoy in an action film, even if it's shit. So what if we just level the playing field and just let anybody try and be an action star?
I see what you're saying, right? I sort of see what you're saying, but I'm going to throw this out, okay? Because there's several things. I know you said about Robert Redford. I wouldn't say he was an action star. I'd say he was more of he did a couple of things that would be action adjacent, maybe in the 70s. But I get what you're saying. Like, Bruce Willis wasn't stacked, but he was he was designed to be the antithesis to Stallone and Schwarzenegger. That was sort of the point. But one of the things I would say is, and this also is one of the things that really sort of like winds me up in some films, is when any son of a bitch can pick up a gun or also enters into a fight and just ends up being successful. There's a film called Death Sentence, I think it's called Death Sentence, with Kevin Bacon in.
Yes.
And it was a remake, sort of Death Wish.
Yes.
In that film, like he's a regular guy who Death Wish is one of those. Is another example where like you've got like Charles Bronson, who is another action star. Chuck Norris, exactly. All these sort of like these hard-worn older men with bad mustaches. And in that, he's supposed to be an architect, and all of a sudden, like he grabs a gun and and for 5 films, he's taking out baddies left, right, and center. Like it doesn't make any sense. But if you watch Death Sentence, you've got the same guy. Some guy, his son is, I think, attacked and killed in a sort of like a 7-Eleven. And he goes out. The whole point is about his basically sort of like mental collapse, taking revenge on these thugs that killed his son. But like you see him have to learn how to use a gun and how to train. He has to train himself to load the gun and fire the gun. And it's not just a sort of like a montage. Like it's hard for him. Like he fucks it up and it makes a mess. And there's all this. And so you go, all right, not everybody is good at this stuff. And that's one of the things of like, just because someone's a cop, I hate this trope is like, and this is why Die Hard works and then became a mess, is because it's sort of like, oh, he's a New York cop, which means he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now it would mean like he's a New York cop. So he has 3 different martial arts and he's absolutely stacked and he has he knows all this sort of like stuff and how to fight. And you're like, no, they don't all know that. It really winds me up. So one of the things they used to cover this off in the 80s, like the reason that Martin Riggs can do the stuff he does is because he was a former special ops soldier. Like you get that. So you go, okay, that explains it. And they sort of, and the counter being Bruce Willis in Die Hard when he's not good at it. Like he barely survives that film. Like let's not forget that like he doesn't stand out in that film as like his hair intact and stuff. Like he comes out of that film. Yeah, all right, that's probably the better example. But like he comes out of that film like battered and almost dead. Like that's the point of the film. Like he's meant to be the regular guy. But you say about this thing about everybody being the action film. I don't want that. I want the action star to be the body beautiful. The action star should be something separate. I want to have the action star be that thing where I'm like, yeah, man, you is badass, and you're taking out a room. Like I want, that's
So
the
I'm
point.
not saying that I want like me to be an action star, but I'm saying I want the same opportunities to be available to everybody to be an action star. As in, you know, Chris Pratt was never seen as an action star until, you know, I want you to look at Melissa McCarthy, although I would say she is in action in Spy, which is a fantastic film, you know, and go,
Heat with her and Sandra Bullock,
Sandra Bullock, you know, I want that same opportunity to be available. Hence the disappointment with somebody like Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, and it's just she is there to be body beautiful, but not in the right way as an action star. Whereas give me Michelle Rodriguez with those beautiful biceps, fucking there.
Exactly, that's what I want. I want to be slightly scared of the action star. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I am slightly scared of Michelle Rodriguez. Like, she'll
beat us all up.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't want to like cross. I wouldn't want to piss her off because I feel like she'd hurt me in the best possible way.
Revealed your kink.
Yeah, but the same goes for like Angelina Jolie. And again, I think she's a fantastic actress who can do massive ranges. But you mentioned like Salt, and I think of like Wanted and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Like, you know, not all of them fantastic films, but like she's one of those actresses again that you go, oh, she's put the effort into this. Like she belongs in that role, and then she can go off and do something else, and you go, oh, she belongs in that role. Like she's an actress. Like she does that kind of thing. And that's what I want, though. I mean, you know, Wanted is a really good example of where the film, unfortunately, is not great, but like the character she plays in it is this incredibly confident assassin and sort of like, you know, and all this other stuff. And like, she's kind of scary where you're like, yeah, Angelina Jolie is a little bit scary. And I that's my expectation is like, I don't want me, like, if I was to turn up and be like, I'm an action star, and they'd be like, no, you chubby fucker, you're not. Like you.
But if you like stacked up.
Yeah, that's
and then fine. I'm there for it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't mind that, but like I say, like, this is the thing. Like you say, Chris Pratt's a really good example of doing this, where he became, because he was able to, because he got the body beautiful. But the you know, and again, if it's used in the right way, though, again, like this is where The Rock is a really good example. Like, but there are certain actors that go, oh, that's my niche. Like I figured it out. Like that's what I do. And I think Arnie did it, and Stallone's probably got a bit of a wider, you know, oeuvre. But like The Rock did it, where he was like, oh, okay, that's me. That's the hole I fit in right there. I do action films, and I play up the joke of how big I am. Cool. That's the point. You know what I mean? And so I think that's sort of like where this thing, and with women, I think it works. If anything, I think, you know, sometimes I think, like you say, some women work it and work it really well. And I think they fit, like, you know, you would say legit female action stars, Mia Djokovic, Michelle Rodriguez. I would even say sort of, as I was saying, Charlize Theron, like, you know, she's done multiple action films. They turn up and they do the part. They look the part. And this is a bit like with other things, like, you know, I don't know if I'm being sort of like, it's not fun, because if you turn up if you're doing a certain role in a film, you are supposed to look a certain way, right? And the action film is part of that. Like, if you turned up to, like, yeah, you wouldn't sort of, you know, you probably wouldn't cast Daniel Day-Lewis in your rom-com.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, at no point is Daniel Day-Lewis doing a farcical comedy with Jack Black. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't hire that person. That's not the you're not bringing that in. And so you're right, and that's why I sort of look at some of these these women that come into action stars, and they're just doing it to maybe fill out a paycheck or to fill out a CV to go, I've done the action thing. But then you say you watch, like, if you've ever seen Peppermint, which is a Jennifer Garner sort of like revenge action film, it went straight to Amazon Prime, but it's actually really good. Think like Death Wish, but was it with a female protagonist? Like, she comes to that role, and you're like, oh no, like that you've brought everything to this role. Like, you look the part. You are playing this properly. It's a great film. It's got really sort of, unfortunately, didn't get the attention. And that's my thing with the action films. It's like I say, there are certain things I expect from an action movie that I think you have to bring. And I think there are certain female action stars that do it and know it and go, I'm in this. And there's others that just sort of rock up and go, I can do it because I'm beautiful, which I think is really disappointing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I completely agree with that. I don't think you should just be given a pass to be in an action film just because you're a beautiful actress. And, you know, or, exactly what you said, or you bring it to a more interesting role, like Sarah Connor or Ellen Ripley, and start, you know, write more interesting female action roles. Just do that, maybe that's going to solve it for us, you know, and then we can have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, well,
you know.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, because, you know, film story comes first. Like, characters should always come first. But
good action film, the story has to be there, otherwise it's a shit action film.
Yeah, that doesn't mean there aren't some fun shitty action films.
But, as discovered, I will watch any shitty action film.
Yeah, but I think that's the point. You're right. Like, write interesting characters, like, you know, and I think we've lost that a little bit. And you know, they cared less about it in the 90s. There was like, here's the bucket you fit in, and this is your character trope, and move on.
But it worked. I don't really want to talk about male action stars too much, but it worked, because even though people, you know, the people who were making those films knew what they were making. They weren't trying to elevate it in any way. It was true dedication to making a particular type of film, and I have a ton of respect for that. And I love that everybody would then bring it and deliver that. Like, that is often what I like about good action films, is people go, we know jumping over this car, shooting two guns sort of stuff is stupid, but we're going to fucking deliver it. We're going to have some doves going up in the background.
Hard target. All I can think about now is hard target.
You know, we're going to do, but they're going to do it properly.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for that. And I feel that with female action films, they don't do that. It's just about chucking it out. Oh, we need a female action film. People liked Atomic Blonde. Let's do something similar. It's like, well, you're not actually understanding what people liked about Atomic Blonde.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that there aren't enough even franchise-worthy female action stars, not action characters. You know, because the thing is, like you say, even those sort of like you say, those 90s stock characters, why haven't I got a broken down, drunk female private eye who likes to go out and you know, is going through a messy divorce, but is able to sort of like, you know, but it throws quips around and stuff like, fuck it, I want that, mate.
Let's do that. That sounds amazing.
Give that to someone who can, you know, do that, and that's what I want to see. Like, those tropes, they're not gender specific. We can still have that. And I just think, you know, like you say, it's just I don't think we're there at the moment. But I think the thing is, you say about action stars, one of the best films of this year was, I don't know if you've seen it, but Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, we've still not seen it.
So I'm not going to spoil anything.
So, although we have just found out that we may have babysitting for Saturday, so maybe we'll watch it then.
I would recommend it. It's a phenomenal film.
Because we wasted our watching that by watching Multiverse of Madness, and we were both very disappointed.
Okay, that wasn't bad choice there. You were in the wrong dimension on that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, but it's, again, you know, Michelle Yeoh in that film is, again, sort of like plays. Again, this is no spoilers. Like, she plays a very regular sort of woman. Like, she turns up as an actress. That's what she's there for. But then when the action cracks out, like, you know, because of who she is and everything she does, like, you know, again, it comes back to this thing of like, she's got charisma, she's got the whole whack. You know, she through years of experience of like, she can clearly do the moves and everything like that. And it's just one of those where you watch it and go like, yeah, everything in this film seems to it shouldn't work, but everything in this film works, like, on every level for me. And it works on the action level as well, where I'm just sort of like, I'm buying into it. I buy the action, I'm buying the character, I'm invested in it, and I'm on board. You know, it's that sort of thing where I was like, this is ace. And I don't think, like I say, that's what I want. And like you say, then we get like Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, sort of like tossing around like blokes randomly. You're just like, this is fucking awful. Like, that's unfortunate when you go like, no, look, if it can be, like, you know, I'm going back to like Trinity, and Atomic Blonde is such a good film for me. I think it's such an underrated film. And I'm watching, I go watch those films, I'm like, why have we not got? Why am I not seeing more of these? Like, it's, but yeah.
So, and another great example is Emily Blunt in Live, Die, Repeat, right?
Yes.
So Rita, great action star name, by the way. Love it. Like such an old lady name, action star Rita. You know, why does she not have a series? Why does she not have a franchise? You know, that's a role that easily could have been a man's role, and it wasn't. And Emily Blunt fucking kills it. Like, it is her film. You know, and everybody watches it and loves it and goes, she's the best thing in it.
Yeah.
Where is her franchise? You know,
she's an interesting actress though, because I don't think she wants it, does she? Because she's done a couple of things, and you sort of go like, she's like, I'm not really that fussed about doing that thing, which is unfortunate because I think she is very good at it. Yeah, she's an interesting one because obviously I think her focus is very much, she's one of those, like, she's had kids and stuff now, isn't she? With John Krasinski. And I think the pair of them now are like, we're not doing that thing anymore. We're going to just do this family thing. And you're like, oh, fuck you both. Like, I want to see more of you doing things.
But yeah, it just right. Shows the classic that, you know, the female action characters come out more popular than the male action character. But, you know, it doesn't go anywhere. You know, I feel like the conversation in Hollywood production offices would be like, oh yeah, but that's a one-off. That was just a one-off. That was lightning in a bottle. It's like, well, you know what?
It can happen again. Well, I'll tell you what, let's finish off on something, because there is something happening that's very interesting. So the first thing I'll say is Tomb Raider. The last Tomb Raider film that got made, I thought was very good. I really enjoyed it. And they let the rights slip, where you're like, why did that not get a sequel? That's bizarre to me. But the other one is, we sort of mentioned again, going back to Charlize Theron. You know, you may get a feeling I'm sort of a bit sort of hung up on Charlize Theron, but that's a different story. Is Furiosa in Mad Max? Yes. And, you know, not only is she a strong woman driving the plot, you know, she is, you know, they give her a disability. They sort of, that, you know, she's clearly got a history. You don't see her complex origin. She's massive. Yeah, she's complex. She's conflicted. Like, she is a fantastic character, and this one's like, she's a phenomenal character in that film, and I love her relationship with the world that she lives in. You know, it's not just her and Max. It's this whole. She has a relationship with so much going on in that world, and so much set up that you don't need to know the origin of. To the extent that they are doing a sequel, they are doing a Furiosa movie. Now, it's not Charlize Theron. It's what's the name? What's it? Taylor-Joy? Amber Taylor-Joy?
Anya Taylor-Joy. Anya Taylor-Joy.
I think she's the one playing Furiosa. But again, like, you know, there's a part of it's going like, it's great you're doing an origin story, you know, but I don't want the origin story. I don't need the origin story.
Don't need a younger version of Furiosa. I want to see,
what I wanted at the end of that film, because Max leaves, right? He goes off to do more mad stuff. Why isn't there a film where she sets up with the mothers, leaves them to it, realizes that she's so broken she can't live in that society anymore, and goes off into the wilderness and has her own sort of like Mad Max style adventure? That's what I wanted. More Charlize Theron doing. I don't need an origin story. I'm sure it'd be great because it's still.
But we don't need it because we learn enough about the character, right? This is why the original Star Wars, Han Solo, is great. We know enough about the character from what happens in that film. We do not need his origin story, which is why the Solo film does not work, because we don't need it. We know who he is. You know, you've told us that. Great storytelling, done. It's the same with Furiosa. All the storytelling is done on the screen in that limited amount of time. We don't need to know her backstory. We know everything about her by what's been written and how it's being acted and how she's being directed. That's it. We are done. We know her. We don't need any of that other bullshit. What we need to know is the rest, is the future of
Yeah.
her story. You know, that's what's interesting. How she exactly what you said, how she navigates the world that she is in.
Yes.
That's what we need to know, because that's more telling and more interesting about her character than how she got there.
Exactly. That's was my point. Like because you know, there's a massive like paradigm shift in that world at the end of Fury Road. How does she sort of navigate that? And like, you can still have action. Like, okay, people feel, you know, I'll throw an idea out for you. Because Immortan Joe's been taken out, they now see that the tower is now vulnerable. So people, you know, so it becomes a siege movie. Have all kinds of stuff. Like that would be amazing.
I mean, I think many people would find this boring, but I'd be fascinated to see how they handled redistribution of the water. You know, would that cause different factions? You know, how do you keep control of the power that you need to keep to make sure everybody gets the water? Like, who else is going to, you know, all of that sort of stuff. Totally interesting. You can have action. You can have action in that. You can also have Furiosa, who is a flawed, interesting, strong character, trying to figure all of that out. You know, she's so interesting because she's so adaptive. You know, she's managed to get the wives, or the wives have got her on side. We don't know, don't need to know. I'll just go off and have a think about that, because I don't need to be fucking told everything.
There were comics that explained it. No one read them.
No, and don't read them, because they undo a lot about her character.
Yeah.
You know, so she knows how to manipulate people in this world. She knows how to take calculated risks, but she also knows how to physically get by in this world with a disability. You know, I don't need to know if she lost her arm or if she wasn't born with her arm. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to exactly it. Like if I met somebody new and they only had one leg, I don't care how they lost their leg. It's got nothing to do with me and their relationship. I don't give a shit. I'll be like, all right, your name's Kylie, great, we're friends. I'm never going to ask a question about it because I don't care. It's not why I'm talking to you, right? And it's the same with her character. Like, I don't need to know all of that. It's irrelevant.
No, I agree, and that's the problem. It needs to be you don't need those things addressed. There's enough there for you to, like, we haven't had origin stories for like all these other characters. Like, you know, we don't need them. Like, you know, I don't want them. Just give me that future, that's continued story. That's what I was hoping for. So I agree, and that's sort of, so I think that's the problem, isn't it? Like, Hollywood never really sort of it sort of, like you say, lightning in the bottle. Oh, it can't be done again. It was a one-off. You go sort of like, well, I'm not so sure. Sort of like, you know, let's at least give it that thing. The one thing I would say is it's George Miller written and directed again, so it will hopefully be just as batshit crazy and we can enjoy it. But it did disappoint me that it went back. But I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'd rather see the present
with a different
or the future.
Character. Just do it with a different character.
Yeah.
Just.
I just want to finish because there was one other person I wanted to sort of just throw out there that deserves, like, you know, at least mentioning and a bit of praise is Ming Na Wen.
Oh my God! Have we not talked about her? Yeah. I love her so much. She's so incredibly talented.
Yeah, she's a Disney princess. She's a Marvel star. She's MCU. She's, well, sort of MCU, but yeah. So she's got the trifecta. And she was Chun-Li in Street Fighter. So.
Yeah, and just incredible. She is somebody who has incredible physicality.
Yeah,
with quite a gosh, I'm getting a bit tired, so I can't think of the right words. Quite a, I guess, Hollywood conforming body. But what she does with her body is incredible. Like, when you watch her acting, just in general, the control she has over her body, let alone when she's fighting, and she can plan out like a move to the exact millimeter, 0.01 millimeter. She is absolutely incredible.
She's one of these people that you recognize is a martial artist. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can see from the way she holds herself and the way she sort of like moves, there's a sort of a fluidity of thing. You recognize she's not a person that knows martial arts, she's a martial artist.
Love that. Yeah.
There's a difference. I feel that with sort of there are other people, like Bruce Lee was the same. That's sort of like he wasn't just a person who made martial arts, like he was a martial artist. Like his body was the thing. And I often sort of watch her, and they say the way she sort of holds herself is very much in that sort of thing of like she's not just there. She lives in her body. She knows her body in very well and uses it on screen. And it just gives her a screen presence, which is just
absolutely
undeniable.
If you're at the gym or doing some sort of exercise and some knobber comes over and goes, oh, don't do it like that, do it in this particular way because that does that. Well, ignore them. But if she came and said that to me, I'd go, absolutely, because you must know something about biology and chemistry and physics on top of everything else, because yes, I'll be like, I will hold myself in the exact way you have said, because just looking at you in the flesh, I can see how incredibly well you understand and hold your body.
Exactly. Yeah. No, she definitely deserves that. And
I can't believe we've only just talked to her about her at the end. I'm so glad.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, because she's fantastic. But yeah. So any last thoughts or actresses we want to throw in as it sounds awful to say that to them, but any sort of like to.
I mean, I think there needs to be some shout outs to, Jennifer Lawrence in Hunger Games. I've completely forgotten her name, and I did look it up just before we started talking. So the film You're Next, lead actress in You're Next, is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. The Australian one.
Yes. Yeah. So she's fantastic. And obviously we've shouted out Zoe Bell. There's probably so many amazing people that have just gone out of my head that I see as either being or can be like true female action stars.
I agree. There's loads. I'm looking around thinking about I could go over the shelves and start looking at Blu-rays and be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to be so disappointed at the end of this.
Yeah,
especially as I've definitely rambled in parts, and I could be like, no, I should have been talking about this amazing person.
But the one thing I want to finish on is as a thought is I'm a bit of a sucker for the Expendables. Like I love that series. Right, old men still doing action films. Like I'm all on board. I'm like, cool.
Sounds great to me.
It's good fun. The fourth one's coming along. And they keep sort of like teasing this idea. There was the 355 they did recently, and then they obviously did Ocean's 8, which was not an action film, but that thing of like, oh, it's a female ensemble cast. But there's in my head, there's an They were going to do one that was called the They kept nicknaming it the Expendables, which wasn't the real name. It was just a sort of like, it's the Expendables for women. And people would list out like who they would want to be in it. Like if they were to do this, who would be in it? And I think from talking today, like there's so many, I'd be like, right, okay, I want, Sigourney Weaver, not so much cracking heads, but like I'd want Sigourney Weaver and Linda Hamilton as sort of maybe the villains of the piece or something.
Lovely.
And the actions, like I'd want Charlize Theron, Michelle Rodriguez, bring in Ming-Na Wen, like, there's so many, like, just have like this, but then bring in like fight choreographers that understand how to use the actresses that they've brought on board.
Yeah.
And I think it would just be an absolute ace. Like it would just be a franchise starter. Like just do that. Like I want to see that ends with a brawl kind of.
Love that.
Even if you did have like, have you sort of, your players, but then have like your main star and your main villain. So you've got like a proper one-on-one fight at the end kind of thing.
Do you know who we've not talked about? And I should have quickly Googled it. From Black Panther. Oh my God.
And Walking Dead. Michonne.
Oh God, that's because I'm too tired to.
My brain's not working properly.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, this is terrible. I'm not going to Google it because then you'll just hear me googling. But yeah, like needs to be.
There's so many, and I'm not talking about like you said. The thing
I didn't even finish that sentence.
No.
It's my bedtime.
But the point being, like you say, not women that just turn up and look pretty and they go, "Oh, I can do some gymnasticy moves." Like, no, women that are going to turn up and embody female action stars.
What's her name? It's going to drive me absolutely nuts.
I have the fear. I should do it quietly whilst we're.
I'll just do some filler.
No one knows I'm doing this.
Yeah, nobody knows. But what about animated? So we've got like Elastigirl. There we go. That's a good animated action hero, female hero. That's a great one. Some of the female characters in Big Hero 6. I think we need to do animated after this.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, then we've also got like classics like Mulan, Moana. Moana's definitely. Any opportunity to talk about Moana.
Raya. She was a Koye, wasn't she? The Ani go. I can't fucking pronounce it now. It's ridiculous. The Ani Goria. I can't say it. They all know who she was.
Everybody knows who we're talking about.
I can never pronounce these bloody names. I'm terrible. I always pronounce people's names wrong.
You always pronounce my surname.
I know.
It's like sometimes you get it right.
Yeah. I've got it in the corner now, so I'll say it right today. But that's the point. But you're right about animated. That's again. But again, it just goes back to television.
Yeah.
It can work on television, but it doesn't seem to translate even for kids. I mean, you've got like Kim Possible.
Oh my god! Oh, what Totally Spies?
Yeah,
I fucking used to love Totally Spies.
Even in Power Rangers, you had 3 and 3. You had the female Power Rangers, of the yellow one and the pink one, and stuff like. It works on TV. You're allowed to do it on television because they're often part of
it feels like there's less risk. I imagine
there's less risk, and I think but also they sort of seem to hit you haven't got to hit the general zeitgeist in order to be successful as you have with a film. And so I think you will find more female sort of action stars on television than you will on the big screen. But I honestly think there's a change. I think we're heading away where like it could work. I still think there's trouble. Like you said, you mentioned obviously the reaction to every female Marvel thing ever for some reason. Yes, they're not all fantastic, but then neither are all the male things either. So it's sort of, but when they work, they work. So but yeah, I don't know. I just think that's the thing. I'd love to see that there, like an Expendables or a kind of like a female-led action franchise.
Well up for that.
Yeah.
How do we make this happen?
I'll write it. It's fine. I'll get in contact with Sigourney. She'll get me a foot in the door. Anyway, I think we're coming to an end now. I think we're both sort of we're getting punch drunk with that tide. So, ladies and gentlemen, for both of us, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoy what we're doing, go check us out. So 20th Century Geek, you can find me all over the place. At 20th Century Geek on Twitter. And if you whatever podcast catcher you're on, go leave a review for 5 stars. And I'll just save you the problem, Ria. I'm not jumping in. I'm not being misogynistic. I'm saying, but for Femme on Film, go find the Comics in Motion Network, and some fantastic episodes in there. You've done all kinds of things, haven't you? You've done so many.
Yes, so mostly I break down films that are either made for women or directed or written by women that often don't get enough attention or just aren't really being talked about. But also I've started a series with the wonderful Tonya Todd and Alison, who you'll all know from Femme on Film, and other stuff. Alison's so great. Around, it's called Hearts and Vaginas, around sex in films. But I'm also going to get the wonderful Ada, and now I'm just see, this is why I don't do it now. I'm just rambling, to come and do some TV series with me as well. So fantastic. It's expanding, and I'm really hoping there's going to be more going on. Ada is a poet, so I'm hoping she can start doing some poetry stuff.
Yeah.
So poetry stuff.
Amazing people.
I don't know the right words, do I?
No, it's late. But you've been on 20th Century Geek and
I love talking to you so much. I have the best time.
And I've had Tonya on, she's coming to Desert Island Comics. We've done a load of stuff. And I'm actually having Alison on to Patreon soon. So I'm meeting with her next week to talk comics and to talk gender and all kinds of things. I'm very excited.
She's so wonderful and intelligent.
Awesome. Yeah.
And thoughtful. And she's really she really sees injustices in the world, but knows the right way to talk about them.
No, I can't wait to talk
she's
to her.
compelling and interesting, and you're gonna have such a wonderful time.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting. I've had some interesting email conversations already with her, so I really can't wait for that one. But yes, so we've got all these kind of people coming on board. We've both got fantastic shows coming up. So go on your Patreon catch and leave a review. 5 stars. Anything less is just disgusting, and we hate you for it. Other than that, though, go check out my Patreon, 20th Century Geek, at patreon.com/20cg media, 20th Century Geek Media. Go check it out. You've got me talking about all kinds of things. You've got trekking through the Twilight Zone. I've got all kinds of stuff on there. It's fantastic. Go check it out. Other than that, though, Ria, this has been great. I've really enjoyed today. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
And
as always, and we're getting together soon again as well, and I'm excited.
Yes. So from my point of view, we've got some Poe coming, Edgar Allan Poe coming. It's going to be the winter, the autumn season is coming in. It's going to be sort of all kinds of spooky. It's amazing. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy Femme on Film. Enjoy 20th Century Geek. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we shall talk to you again soon.